Hello and welcome to your in-depth weekly horoscope for week commencing the 26th of September for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you the standout features to look out for, but please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you in much greater detail each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. So as we go into this new week, so the power of the new moon in the sign of Libra and its opposition to Jupiter, which ended last week, is pouring, cascading its energy into this week too, because the Sun and Jupiter are in opposition for much of the week. Now this is a very nice state of affairs. What's not to like? Well, it's simply that Mercury in its retrograde is in a direct opposition with Neptune. And that particular link, even though Mercury is in one of its two home zones of Virgo, really can create quite a lot of confusion. And even where we're trying to be very diplomatic, reaching into the other person's viewpoint, we're trying to be good listeners, be a little bit more detached in terms of understanding that maybe people see things in a different way, it can all turn to mush with that particular and complex opposition. In fact, we could encounter someone who could actually tell us something that's absolutely a bare-faced lie. So really important to temper the enthusiasm and optimism of Jupiter being opposite the Sun with a real dash of realism. And fortunately, Mars, which is in the part of the zodiac which is very much to do with everyday communications, that's in a very stable link to Saturn in the sector of the community. So that gives us one opportunity to be a bit clearer. And then on Thursday, Venus moves into the sign of Libra. So joins up with the Sun. This is the sign that Venus governs along with Taurus, and it's going to be in opposition with Jupiter too. So I think we just got to try and see the best in each other, to be honest. There's also a very positive link between Mars and Pluto, which can help to cut through some of the confusion and the distortion that Mercury's opposition with Neptune can create. But I think if we can just realize that even if we're quite different in some ways, we do all have some commonalities. And if we can focus on the things that we can celebrate as having in common and not so much focused on the things that make us stand apart, then by the end of this week, there can be a real opportunity for an improvement in all sorts of interactions. The quarter moon, which does occur at the end of the week, is in the sign of Capricorn. So maybe when it comes to those professional relationships, there may be someone who wants us to conform with the expectations of the big business or the organization or the educational facility we're at. And that's tough. We all have to, at some level, let our individuality go and understand that there are certain conventions that we have to fit in with. But that could be a little bit of a sticking point at the end of this week, but the real way to make progress this week is to try to have a sense of clarity, but also a realistic sense of expectation, but then embrace that Jupiter bubbly energy too. Now, please stay with me for your individual forecast. If you would like to ascend above this zodiac broadcast, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you your year 2023 forecast, the rest of year 2022 free if you order before the turn of the year, and also your life map, your character analysis that can guide you for the rest of your days by giving you searing insights, some of those patterns that can be repeated, and help you to understand them much more. And with my special package, there's 30% off. Please see the link beneath this video. And finally, if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you've already done so, thank you so much for your ongoing support. So Pisces, your week commencing the 26th of September forecast sees the sun still in touch with Jupiter in an opposition. You're still benefiting from a very positive new moon in your 8th house, which is longer term finances. And then Venus comes into this area too. So that suggests you could benefit from someone else's generosity, good fortune, or hard work. If you're in a partnership business-wise, this can be a very positive time, despite all the harsh realities that we're all being confronted with. For you, there could be something good in this week. But with Mercury in retrograde in your opposite sign of relating, and in an opposition with Neptune, your sensitive co-regent, it's going to be important to divine information that's shared in a way that isn't self-defeating. You can be enormously compassionate and caring, and Neptune could see you reach into someone's situation and relate to them in this very thoughtful and very tender way. And also Pluto is linking brilliantly with Mercury, Pluto in your sector of friendship in the future. So a constructive conversation is possible. You could be very compassionate, but also you could in some ways kid yourself, not intentionally, but it's almost like you can think what's being discussed is actually different to what the other people or the other person thinks is being discussed. So if you do have any concerns, whether you're not quite getting where each of you is coming from, you may need to really talk it through until you can both acknowledge exactly what the other one meant, and that can fight off Neptune's distorting potential and Mercury retrograde's potential for glitches. Now, Saturn is and has been in a very difficult location for you since the end of 2020 on an ongoing basis. There was the spring in the north and the autumn in the southern hemisphere from March the 22nd to August the 2nd of that year. But the key with Saturn this week is that it's getting closer, and by the end of the week it is actually there in a square with Uranus within 1 minute, and that goes on to the 12th of October. So if you have been feeling a sense of pressure, a sense of isolation, a sense that your nervous system feels run down, your adrenals are a bit overwrought, you've tried your hardest on various levels to relate to certain people, but you may have felt, that you've wanted to detach yourself, then I think that it's really reaching a peak. The great news is by the end of November, you're going to be released from this really truly trying aspect once and for all. And I think this week's opportunities come from having a degree of trust, because Jupiter, your other ruler, is very much about faith and a higher purpose. And it's in your second house of everyday money, and it's in the opposition with the Sun and then with Venus, which actually can be lucky, but it's almost like believing that's possible. Because I think, the Neptunian influence on Pluto can actually be very transformational in a positive way. But that right angle between the 3rd and the 12th houses, with Saturn in the 12th house, my word, that has been quite an experience to get through. And if you are someone who runs on the sensitive side anyway, and that's often the case with Pisces people, you may have really felt this aspect very strongly. So I think this week gives you an opportunity for closeness, for an improvement in your finances despite the prevailing headwinds, but it does require a little bit of faith that who you might edge towards and come up with some kind of collaborative venture, or who you may get to know, or who you may even get up close and personal with in a more intimate way, that you almost have to risk a bit to get some kind of progress. But I think that what happens with very difficult aspects that go on a long time is we get more and more practice of them. So when they come around yet again as they are now, because this pretty well was constant through 21 and the start of this year, hopefully you've got the hang of it. You know what's triggering you. You know your tender spots that, maybe you're even imposing with your own thinking upon yourself. So if you can believe it's possible, some good stuff can happen around your connections with others and money this week.